Welcome back, fight fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report for this week's Fight Report with Hanson Crafton. Here to talk about the fights that have just happened and what's coming up. And Hanson, what just happened was a pretty big upset.
Yeah, it was a really big upset. Very surprising. The crowd in T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on Saturday was surprised to see. Actually, you had two upsets. The first wasn't really. I know Joshua Van won the title, but I don't know if you can really call it an upset. They called the fight off because probably a minute or so into the fight, Pantoja threw a high kick, was getting taken down, planted his back arm to soften the blow as he was going to the ground, and he snapped his arm at his elbow. Looked like a complete dislocation. It bent backwards. It was kind of like the Jaden Daniels injury. Looked a little worse than that. Completely just destroyed his arm. He was unable to continue. As soon as he went down, he motioned to the ref that, hey. So they stopped that fight. Van getting the title would have been an upset. He was the underdog going into that fight, but the way he got it's not really an upset, as you can say. It's not like he actually won the fight. If you go and look at the record, it's going to be a win, but if you watch the fight, you know what happened.
Sure.
So that was more shocking than anything, but then Peter Yan and then Merab Dashvili, Peter Yan had just a great performance. He had a great game plan. He was able to keep the fight on the feet. If he did get taken down, he was able to get right back up. Merab had a hard time getting him down. He held him a lot against the fence, but Yan was able to break away. And then when the fight was on the feet, he just kind of picked Merab apart, busted his face up really good. He had a really good jab going Saturday night. It was straight, quick. It did a lot of damage. Merab, his one eye was busted up really bad. It was bleeding. His nose was busted really bad. It was just a really good performance. He hurt Merab to the body a few times with kicks and punches. Hurt him with a big right hand early in the fight. And he pretty much it was, I think on two judges' cards, it was 3-2, and on another one, it was 4-1.
Right.
But outside of the first couple rounds, it really wasn't close. Merab usually is the guy who later in the fight wears guys down because of his stamina and his cardio and his pressure. But Yan was there for the test. He had the better pressure of the two all night. He just stayed on him as it was on the feet. He kept the jab in his face. He backed him up with it. He was able to land the right hand when he needed to. And then if he did get taken down, he was able to get back up. And he wasn't taken down as much as, I think Merab shot over 20-something times and probably only got him down twice. And Yan was able to score a couple takedowns himself. So it was just a really great performance by Yan. He looked outstanding, probably the best I've seen him look in any of his fights, even when he won the title previously. He just looked very good. He looked like he had a really good game plan. He was well trained. And it all accumulated Saturday night because he put on a really good performance.
Do you think 3-2 or 4-1?
I thought more 4-1. I thought Merab was the rounds that his coach in the corner was telling him he won. I didn't even believe that. Was pressing forward. He did have pressure, and he would lay on him against the cage, and he would shoot for the takedowns and get to the waist, but he wasn't able to get him down. I can't give you points for that, especially when the exchanges on the feet were going the way they were going. Yan was winning almost all the exchanges on the feet, and Yan had times where he was pushing the pace and putting the pressure on Merab. I had Yan winning 4-1, and I thought there were 3 of the 4 rounds were clearly Yan rounds.
As you mentioned on the fight report last week, Merab was trying to become the first fighter ever to win or to defend a title 4 times in the same year. So not only does Yan keep him from doing that, but of course this was a rematch as well, which leads me into this is probably going to see a third one, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you'll definitely see them fight again. It's crazy. If you would ask me after the first time they fought, as dominant as Merab was, if you had told me that just a year and a half later, Yan would beat Merab in a pretty decisive win, it would have been tough to see just because the first fight was so one-sided towards Merab. Yan made the correct adjustments. He was well trained after the fight. There were some videos released of the training he did against another Olympian style wrestler, and the guy pretty much had the exact same style that Marab had wrestling wise. It was pretty neat watching that video, watching how Marab's takedowns are more, he likes to pressure against the cage and take you down from the cage. George St. Pierre was really good about being able to take you down in the middle of the octagon. He would shoot in with a blast double and be able to get you down. Marab's more of a guy who likes to shoot on a single, then get to the hips, and then get you taken down. So he normally will get you pressed against the cage, use the cage to either pull you off of it and take you down with momentum, or it just press you against the cage and take you down. So it was very interesting to see the training with Jan because he was very well prepared for that. The guy he was training with was just constantly shooting on him, pressing him against the cage, and he was defending it. So, like I said, he was very well trained. He knew exactly what to do throughout the whole fight, and it worked for him. He won a pretty decisive victory. I feel like he won 4 rounds, and they none of them were really close.
You don't really think about game plans in fighting that often, but a game plan really can be the difference.
In mixed martial arts, especially boxing, it's a lot different because guys kind of you have to be able to fill the fight out, and certain fights aren't going to go a certain way, and so you have to be able to adjust a lot in boxing. But in mixed martial arts, if you can go in with a game plan and you can stick with it, or if you can train against someone else's game plan, Rob pretty much fights the same every fight. All his fights are the same. He's not the best guy on the feet. He does have good cardio, so he can kind of use his stand up striking. Doesn't kick much, but he kind of uses that to set up his takedowns, and he's just got such good cardio. He's relentless with it, so he's able to stay on you. But if you can train for his style of fighting and the way he tries to take people down, that's pretty much all he has. And it kind of showed once when he was not able to get Jan down, he pretty much was just a target for Jan. And then I think that's why his face got beat up so much because he just really doesn't have the skill set on the feet to compete with a high level striker like Jan, and he wasn't able to get him down on the ground where he shines. He really didn't have a plan B. In mixed martial arts, it's really, if you have a good game plan, stick to that game plan, it can really help you out in a fight, especially when you're fighting guys that are one dimensional.
Jan is the bantamweight champion. Van is the flyweight champion. They were the only two championship fights that night. Who else caught your eye?
The fight leading up to the title fights, Tatsuro Terra, he looked really good in his fight against Brandon Moreno. He stopped him in the second round. He was able to get him down, flatten him out, and finished him with some ground and pound. He'll probably be next for Joshua Van. I don't think Pantoja's going to be, he's not going to be healed in time. They're not going to sit Van out for a year or so to wait for Pantoja. Now, whenever Pantoja's healthy, he's going to come back and get a title fight. He didn't lose that fight by any means. He came out strong. His striking looked good to start. It was just a freak accident. He got his elbow snapped, and that was the fight. So he will definitely get a title shot whenever he heals up. But I just don't think that Van will be willing to sit that long. It was a 20-something second fight, 30-second fight for him.
Right.
He'll be able to turn around pretty quick.
He could fight next week if he needed to.
Exactly. He'll have a quick turnaround. And so I think him and Tar will be next. Tar looked really good against Moreno. I know some people will tell you it was an early stoppage, but he had Moreno pinned down, was just welling on him. The ref didn't stop it. It could have got worse. I think he looked really good. Pair that up with a couple of his previous fights. I think he has earned a title shot. I think he is ready for a title shot, and that'll be an interesting fight with him and Van. And then the winner of that will obviously take on Pantoja whenever he comes back. So it actually made some excitement in the flyweight division. The division is being kind of dominated by Pantoja, and now you've got a little excitement down there. You got some fresh blood, and then you'll have the former champion coming back trying to reclaim his title. So I thought that was good. And then the Henry Cejudo Peyton Talbot fight. Henry Cejudo retired. He's at the end of his. He's an Olympic gold medalist, two-weight champion. Kind of the wrestling way, somebody on their way out, put over somebody coming up. Talbot looked really good in his fight. He was able to actually take Henry down a couple of times. So he's shown in his last two fights the improvement in his wrestling. I think at one point that was the way people saw to beat Peyton, but in his last couple fights, he has shown that he can stop some takedowns, and then against Henry, he was able to take him down. And his striking is really good. That's his bread and butter, anyways. He busted Henry up on the feet as well. After the fight, Henry's face was a mess. Really good performance out of him, and a really good performance out of Tatsuro Terra. I thought them two stood out on the undercard, and then Don obviously was the big winner of the night. I think his performance was great. He looked really good against a guy a lot of people thought was unbeatable. So that's really who stood out to me on Saturday.
So if Jan and Merab are going to fight again, what's Talbot going to do next?
He's probably still working his way up. I think he just lost a couple fights ago. He's on a streak. I think he's won two straight now. He'll probably get a couple more fights, and then he'll probably start. I think he'll probably win. May need one or two more, and then he might get title eliminator, or they might throw him in for the championship. Really just depends on who kind of shines in that bantamweight division. I know there's a big fight coming up with Song Yudong and Sean O'Malley, who is a former champion. Dong's a guy who's on a streak. He just beat Cejudo a couple fights ago himself. I know that's a big fight. You got Umar in there as well. So there's still some guys in front of Talbot in the bantamweight division, but he's on the right track. He's probably 2 or 3 fights away from a title shot.
And UFC 324 is January 24th, so of course that means you're not going to have to pay for it. Anybody can watch it. All UFC fans are going to have to do is make sure they have the Paramount Plus app, and from now on, it seems we're going to get free fights.
And it's a really good card to start that off. Main event, I really like Gaethje and Pimlet. You don't have really, I think Arman Sartugian is the #1 contender for the lightweight title. But he's still being punished for pulling out of the fight day of the fight when he had his title shot against Islam. So they put in Paddy Pimblett, who's been on a run, and then Justin Gaethje, who's been a perennial top lightweight. So they're going to fight for the interim belt. Ilya Tapuria is the champion, but he's actually dealing with some personal stuff right now. I know he's going through a divorce, and then he just said other personal things. So he is on the shelf for a little bit right now. So they are doing an interim lightweight title. So they're going to be the main event of that card. And then you're going to have Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes for the women's bantamweight title, which is a really big fight. You got Amanda Nunes, who's probably the best women's fighter of all time. She's a two-weight champion at 35 and 45 pounds. And then Kayla Harrison's been on a dominant run. She was a champion at PFL, came over to UFC. She's undefeated in the UFC, just won the belt, dominated Juliana Pena in her fight for the title. And the story with these two is they actually used to be training partners. That was one of the reasons why they split, is because Nunes seen Harrison coming. Once Harrison got to the UFC, I think she knew that a potential fight was going to happen between the two. So Nunes actually left the camp they were at. They have trained together. So that's a real interesting fight against two of the top women fighters. Harrison hasn't been in the UFC that long, but her performances and how she looked in the PFL as well, you can say she's probably one of the better women fighters in the history of women, especially at that weight class. So that's a really interesting fight. It's a really big fight for women's MMA. You've got the GOAT coming back. Nunes took a couple years off. She's coming back. And then you got Harrison, who's been on a run lately. So that's really interesting. And then you also have Sean O'Malley versus Song Yudong, which I talked about earlier. That could be a title eliminator fight. They're both ranked 3 and 5. It'll really just depend on who wins and how they win. It's good for O'Malley that Merab did lose, because O'Malley actually has a win over Jan. It was very controversial. A lot of people thought Jan won, but O'Malley does have a win over him. So that'll help him get to the title quicker. If Merab wins, I think O'Malley probably has to put on a pretty good little streak to get a third fight with Merab, since he's already lost to him twice. But with Jan winning, that bumps him right up. So a good win for O'Malley. He probably fights for the title next. Yudong hasn't fought either one of them, hasn't had a title shot yet. So a good win for him. Maybe he gets a title shot. So that's a big fight as well. And then you got a couple heavyweights on there. So that's a really fun card and a really good card to start off the Paramount Plus deal.
And that's the same place as the UFC 323 T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. And one of my favorites is also fighting that night, Rose Namajunas.
She's on the undercard. She's got a really big fight with Natalia Silva. Silva's actually ranked number 2 in the flyweight division. Rose is at number 6. So that's a big fight. It's Rose kind of saying she's still in there. She's still able to beat some of these up and comers, put her name in a title fight contention. And then you've got Silva who's coming up and she wants to stamp her name for the next woman to fight for the title. I think if she wins impressively, she probably will get a title shot next. Rose
Couple
is a
losses.
former champion and she's a big name. If
Yeah.
she goes out there and starches Silva, she could get a title shot off of that performance. So it's a really fun card. There's a lot of good names on there. Gene Silva's fighting. It'd be interesting to see how he responds after having his first loss in the UFC in his last fight against Diego Lopez. So it's a really fun card. You got Michael Johnson, Alexander Hernandez, 2 knockout guys in the lightweight division. They're fighting each other. And then you've got Umar. He's fighting Davison Figueiredo on there. So it's a really fun card. A really good card to start the free era off for the UFC. I think that'll draw a lot of eyeballs. So you had a really nice boxing fight. It was for the WBC Interim World Super Light Championship. You had Lamont Roach, and he was fighting Isaac PItbull Cruz. Really fun fight, really good fight. Both of these guys had coming in with some momentum. Roach in his last fight had to draw with Tank, and a lot of people thought he won that fight. So he was coming in high. PItbull Cruz has been on a run. He's a guy that's kind of in his last fight, I think I was on there, said he fights like he's got rabies. He's a relentless guy, attacking really good styles. Roach is more of a guy who counter punches, heavy-handed, and then Pitbull's a guy who comes forward at all costs and will throw himself in the fire to land some punches. They had a really good fight. Ended up being a draw. I know it sucks for Roach. That's 2 draws in a row. A lot of people, again, thought Roach might have won that fight. Then I saw a couple people the next day that said they thought maybe Pitbull won. It's one of those, it was really tough for me to call. I thought Roach was winning, and then he got knocked down in round 3. So then I thought Cruz was winning, but then Cruz got a point deducted in round 7 for a kidney punch that might have been on the borderline. Don't really know. It's tough to tell with how high these guys wear some of their shorts now. But a really exciting fight. I thought Roach did have the lead, but then I thought Pitbull won the last 2 rounds. And so it was really hard to tell. When it went actually to the judges, I was kind of leaning more towards a draw than anything myself, just because it was so tough to call. I thought some of the rounds Roach looked really good, and then I thought some of the rounds Pitbull did, especially for Pitbull to be able to take the last 2. I felt like that kind of stood out to the judges, even if they had Roach winning the fight. For him to lose the last 2 rounds like that, I thought were big for Pitbull. So that was a really good fight, a really fun fight, and they definitely will fight again. I don't know when. They both were, I wouldn't say beat up, but you could tell they'd both been in a fight. I think Roach broke his right hand, or he thought he broke his right hand, so we'll have to wait and see what the doctors say on that. That'll definitely be a fight that we'll see again. I don't know how soon they'll run it back, but they'll definitely fight again, and it'll be for the Interim World Super Light title. I don't know if they're going to move on without Tank, but I think maybe if whoever wins may fight Tank if he decides to fight again. That's a big fight whenever they redo it, but it was a very fun fight Saturday that they had in San Antonio.
Hanson, I want to talk about some fights coming up, including your guy Inoue taking on David Picasso on December 27th. Also this weekend, a couple of fights of interest. Badu Jack is defending his Cruiserweight Championship against the guy who he won it from, Noel Mikalayan. That's in Los Angeles. And in Stockton, California, decent super middleweight bout, Diego Pacheco against Kevin Lele Sadho. But I want to talk about what's coming up on December 19th, and that's Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua. And I can't believe Jake Paul's going to go through with this. I'm afraid something bad's going to happen.
It's one of those to where if the real Anthony Joshua shows up, you have to be scared for Jake Paul. Joshua's lost fights. He lost to Andy Ruiz, and Du Bois is probably a better fighter than Jake Paul and Ruiz, so you don't really no slouch there. But I just can't see Anthony Joshua losing to Jake Paul. There's just nothing in me that can even
No.
see it being a competitive fight. I think Anthony Joshua is head and shoulders over Jake Paul. I've watched majority of Jake Paul's fights.
Even
He's
even if he's not a better fighter, he's so powerful. Jake Paul's never seen like this. As good a fighters as he's faced, he's never faced someone like a top 5 heavyweight contender.
no, never. He fought
Nothing close.
a 60-year-old Mike Tyson, a 50-year-old Anderson Silva. Majority of his opponents have been retired MMA guys. He fought a retired Julio Chavez, who hasn't fought in forever, and when he did, he was a guy who didn't have output, had a lot of negative things about him. So he's always stacked the deck in his favor, whether it's
Right.
age or weight. He's never taken on anybody like Anthony Joshua, who's got size on him and has the skill gap. This is a former world champion, multiple belt world champion, and a knockout artist. And
Yeah.
AJ's got big power in both hands, and
A
he's a
first
really good
round knockout
puncher.
artist.
He's a really big puncher. Just go look at the Francis Ngannou fight. You know, Ngannou was able to hang in there with Fury. We don't know what Fury he was in there with, so a lot of people had a lot of false hope for Ngannou. Then Joshua went in there and just destroyed him in 2 rounds, knocked him out cold. This is a dangerous fight for Jake Paul. I'm surprised he's taking it. This is one of those to where if you go in there and Joshua doesn't fight like the Joshua we've seen, you have to come out of there thinking that there's something behind the scenes. I
Yeah.
just there's nothing in me that thinks Jake Paul can hang with Joshua or even take any of those punches. Especially with the way Joshua came out against Ngannou, took it very seriously. He didn't give Ngannou any opportunities to take advantage of him or to land anything that could change a fight. He went out there and did what he was supposed to do and got the job done. And I feel like if he fights that same way against Jake Paul, it'll be a first or second round knockout. I just don't see how Jake Paul can even compete with Anthony Joshua. It's a very strange fight. I don't know why Paul took it. It's one of those to where this is a huge fight for Joshua because if he loses or even doesn't go out there and just starts Jake Paul, there's going to be a lot of questions thrown his way. So it's a very weird fight, but it is interesting, and I definitely will tune into it.
I had no interest in the Mike Tyson fight, but this might be something that interests me a little bit. Do we need
Yeah,
to remind people that Anthony Joshua knocked out Klitschko and Povetkin and
yeah. I
Pulev?
mean,
And this guy's like, he turned out not to be quite as good as I thought he was going to be. But this is a real fighter, man.
he's still the IBF and WBO both still have him ranked as the #2 heavyweight. He's no slouch. This is a real fight for Jake Paul. It's a very dangerous fight that he's taken. I know they're using heavier gloves, but it's only 10 ounces compared to 8, so that's not going to make a huge difference. 8 rounds, I don't think the rounds matter because if the real Joshua shows up, it's not going past 2 or 3. So this is it's a real scary fight for Jake Paul, and I'm very surprised that he actually took it. You know, I could see why he would have fought somebody like Tank because he had a 60-pound weight advantage. So a strong 135-pound puncher is not really going to take the effect on a 200-pound man. But now he's fighting a 250-pound man who is also a strong puncher, which is just a completely different fight than what he originally signed up for. It's super weird, but it's also super interesting. So it'll be something that I'm sure a lot of people will tune into on Friday night. There's probably a lot of people that's been waiting to see Jake Paul get knocked out that may get their wish.
That's right. I don't want
Right.
to diminish Jake Paul because for the way he's done things, for what he's a pretty good fighter. That's hard to deny. But this is different.
It's really different. A lot of people, their biggest knock on Jake Paul, they say the only time he fought a real boxer, he lost when he fought Tommy Fury. But this is a real boxer he's fighting this time. So this is a real fight. So we'll see finally how he does in a real fight against a guy who Joshua's not, he's probably not in his prime, but he's not too far from it either.
No,
So
no.
he's still this is still an Olympian, a former heavyweight champion. This is still a very good fighter that's standing across from Jake Paul.
And a guy with aspirations to be the world champion again.
He's still got some big fights in front of him if he wants them. So that's why I'll say it's very weird that he took this fight with how bad it could affect him, especially for what he's still trying to do. I know he still wants to do the Fury fight. He still has a couple fights he wants. So this is a fight where you go out there and you lose to Jake Paul, or you even look like Jake Paul even wins rounds or so. I think that a lot of people are going to think he's done, and it's going to be tough for him
Absolutely.
to get any big fights. It's a risky fight for both guys. For Joshua, more risky for his career. For Jake, more risky for his life. But it's a risky fight.
And Hanson, one of your guys, in a way, December 27th in Saudi Arabia, taking on Picasso. And we'll talk more about that in the next couple of weeks. But your initial thoughts going into that one?
I'm super pumped for that. I love watching the Inoue fight. He is one of my favorite fighters, the monster, knockout artist, a real knockout artist. He goes in there with bad intentions for every fight. He'll throw himself into the fire. We've seen him get dropped in 2 of his last 3 fights and be able to get up and then finish the other guys well.
Yeah.
Great counter puncher, but with also being a counter puncher, he's a guy who likes to put pressure on. He likes to try to suck the punch out of the other guy so he can counter. He's not a guy who lays back and lets you come on him and him try to counter that way. He'll force the fight and still try to find his counters. He's a very fun guy to fight. Picasso, he's ranked number 2, but I really don't know what his chances are in this fight. Everybody knows what this card is set up for. You've got Inoue on there, and then you've got Nakatani on there. Nakatani's the super bantamweight champion. Inoue's the super bantamweight champion. And we all know that they want both of these guys to win. And then the first year, next year, there's going to be a huge fight in Japan between Inoue and Nakatani. You got 31-0 in Inoue, 31-0 in Nakatani. They both could potentially be third. Both of them are knockout artists. And that's the super fight that everybody's looking forward to. So that's the whole reason why they put this card on. They're putting them on the same card. They want to draw a little bit more eyes to Nakatani. I'm not sure too many people are aware how good he is. But they'll be able to see on the 27th because Nakatani is a really good fighter and he's a real threat to Inoue when they do meet up at the first of next year.
Hanson, it's been a lot of fun as always. Let's do it again next week.
You got it.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Fight Report with Hanson Crafton. Please do us a huge favor. Share this podcast with a fight fan in your life and help us spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is here talking about what Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every single day. Thanks again, Hanson.
Thank you.
Central Indiana Sports Report is brought to you by TG Media. And I love Susie.